Okay, studio. Smooth 98.1 Lagos, Nigeria world. It is gone past 7:30 for a Monday morning, which means that we get to bring you freshly pressed here on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Sope Martins, and joining me for the next half hour, I have got Cheta Nwanze. Good morning, Cheta.
Good morning. How was your weekend?
Well, it was as short as weekend seemed to be. How was yours?
Uh, it started out good, ended not the happiest.
Petrol.
Uh, yeah, petrol issues.
So sorry, let's talk about that. In fact, let's just go straight into it. People, we're going to be dealing with these stories as they come. And do remember, you can join the conversation on this by sending messages via WhatsApp to 0809 444 981. You can also go over to Twitter, use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 up on that platform. And you can leave a message on the live chat up on youtube.com/smooth981fm Lagos. So getting into it, maybe your woes will soon be over, Cheta, because we have this news coming in. This day newspaper, the headline reads, fuel scarcity will be over soon, according to the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. And they're assuring Nigerians that our woes will soon be at an end, saying that it will soon be a thing of the past.
If I had a naira, and it's important to use naira for because it's a worthless currency for that. If I had a naira for
In
every
your
time we've
opinion?
heard in my lifetime that our woes for fuel scarcity or for this or for that will soon be over, I would be a very wealthy man by now. Unfortunately, we've had these promises given so many times, and every time things seem to get worse. So let's start from first principles. What is the root cause of this petrol scarcity in a country which is, the last time I checked, the 15th largest producer of oil in the world? The root cause for this petrol scarcity is the fact that, number one, we hardly refine any of the oil into any of the crude oil into petroleum products in country. So we have to export our crude oil, or export the Niger Delta's crude oil to other countries. It is refined in those other countries and brought back to Nigeria. Now, the people who who do the refining are not doing it because they love us. They are doing it for profit, which means that we must pay fair market value for those refined products. But we insist on selling those refined products within the country at a rate that is not, and this is putting it kindly, realistic. We insist on having this unrealistic rates across a very large country. Let's get it. Nigeria at 1 million square kilometers is quite a large country. While around us, all our other neighbors sell petrol at fair market value or something approaching fair market value. So essentially, we create an incentive for smugglers to take this petrol out of the country to sell it in other countries. Number two, because businesses are set up to make profit. There again, and I think it's something that Nigerians need to understand. Businesses are not set up for love; they're set up to make profit. It's that simple. So we now have a situation where the inefficient government company called the NNPC has become essentially the only importer of petrol because they are the only ones who soak up all the losses. But you see, this behavior, this pretense, or this refusal to look at market realities in the face is beginning to come to bite us. Because I mean, the CBN governor himself, just the Friday before last Friday, said publicly that the NNPC has not remitted zilch to the federal government this year, which is something that they are meant to do. Remember that a large part of our federal allocations comes from the NNPC. So Essentially, what we're seeing in terms of this fuel scarcity, which has some kind of very ironic things, such as the fact that I ended up buying black market petrol inside the petrol station yesterday.
Oh wow.
I- it's so that's it for me. That's not a problem. For me, that is actually the starkest proof that you can get that the problem is not availability. The problem is pricing.
So, Cheta, there are a couple of things that I want to
Okay, ask away. Yep.
ask you regarding this. So, first of all, we've heard from NNPC that by next year, 2023, they're going to stop fuel petrol importation, and that they're going to now rely on the refineries that are supposed to be coming on. The Dangote refinery that's supposed to be coming up, and the refinery that is worried that
They've been
it's
doing turnaround. They've been doing turnaround maintenance on the refineries since
that one
1995.
that's not supposed to
That
be
was when.
turnaround maintenance, but come up
See,
and work maintenance.
let's. I beg.
No, but
See,
what I want to ask for this, I know you want to go into the details of whether or not that is actually going to be, but let's go forward on the assumption that those refineries will be up and running, and we will be able to locally,
let's
domestically
start with the
refine.
Dangote refinery. Let's start with the Dangote refinery. Mr. Dangote, God bless his soul, has taken a lot of loans to build that refinery. The last time I checked, all of those loans are not in Nigeria's currency. They are in USD. They have to be paid back. What that means is that his refinery has to be profitable. What that means is that when he refines, he's going to sell in where they will pay him so that he will make the money back to pay the people.
Now that
Good old
was
Aliko
going
does
towards
not.
the question I was going to ask
Yes,
you.
good old Aliko does not want a situation where he will go to meet his babe in Miami in his private jet, and then creditors will seize the private jet and give him an economy class ticket and say be going. He will need to do what he needs to do to get back those loans and pay them back. It's that simple. Unfortunately, the government is selling us a red herring, saying, "Oh, Aliko Dangote's refinery will solve the four problems." It will not. Let's get real on that. Number two, they are not going to repair any of those refineries. Let's get real on that. They've been talking about repairing the refineries since 1995. Picking where they born 1995, you don't buy a house. Some of them don't marry, don't born. So what are we talking about? Please, let's get real. We need to accept market realities and adjust accordingly. End of.
Okay, so you're saying that December 2023 date, in your opinion, for the Warrior Refinery is not something that we're going to see?
I'm being extremely polite and self-censoring when I say it's a mirage.
All right, now the second thing I wanted to ask you, please let me finish this question this time around, okay, is with the idea of, excuse me, apologies for that, with the idea of subsidies and removal of subsidies, right? The thing that I want to ask is we're currently in an ecosystem that's thriving on subsidies across different sectors, that should they be taken away? And also looking at the fact that those subsidies are in line with the wage that people are receiving, including the minimum wage. Now, should those subsidies be taken away, starting off with the petrol subsidy, what effect do you think that's going to have on people who are at the current minimum wage that can, let's say, just about afford keeping themselves running with the fuel at its subsidized price right now? What would you expect to happen if that was taken away, as we're
Yes,
looking
we
at
should.
it being done in
Yes,
2023?
yes, we should remove the fuel subsidies. At some point, we have to build that cut. So it's better to do it now than to further wreck the country, and then we'll still have to do it anyway.
Okay.
We will have to do it. Having said that, what the government ought to do is move the subsidy points. So, as an example, Dangote refinery that you are making so much shit about, move the subsidy points and then subsidize them by granting tax breaks. Subsidize them by by making things cheaper for them to produce that fuel so that it makes economic sense for them to sell within Nigeria. That way, the price at which they will sell, although his record on cement doesn't lend much credence to that, but let's be nice. If his production is subsidized, then he will not sell at very high prices, which will mean that people will not have too much of a shock. And that's what we need to adopt wholesale across our ecosystem. We need to start subsidizing production. And subsidizing production does not mean printing money to pay them. What it means is giving things like tax breaks, giving things like tax credits, offering incentives so that their cost of production comes down, and thus the cost of the goods to the final consumer comes down. But this thing of printing money to give people in the name of subsidy, what it does end up doing is it ends up, number one, being a source of monumental corruption, which the fuel subsidy regime is, and number two, just as importantly, it becomes a basket to nowhere, which is what all of these things are in this country, a basket to nowhere.
All right, well, we've got this message in from Saratu, who says subsidy itself is a scam. If we refine our oil inside our country, we wouldn't be talking about subsidy. For government to be waiting for a private businessman to finish building his refinery before we can refine our oil in full capacity means that there's a problem somewhere. So let's fix our refineries and subsidy will die a natural death, says Saratu, who's in Ogun State. Fabian from Ekpe says, since I was in secondary school, the government has been repairing refineries and flaring the gas in Warri. We need to wake up and smell the coffee. I don't think that's what we're smelling, but okay. We need to.
Fabian is talking as if, as in, we need to know when he was in secondary school. For all we know, he may have finished secondary school in 1975.
Fabian goes on to say, things would actually get better for us if our senators and legislators are made to also feel what the average Nigerian feels with less perks. All right, let's move things along now. We're going to take things over to our next article. This one comes in from the Premium Times with regards to the flood. Serap sues Buhari over ecological funds. That's a socio-economic rights and accountability project filing a suit against President Buhari over, and I quote, the failure to probe the spending of trillions of ecological funds by government at all levels, federal, state, and local governments from 2001 to date, and to ensure the prosecution of suspected perpetrators of corruption and mismanagement of public funds. Cheta, what do you make of this suit against the president?
I think the only complaint I have about it is that they're suing him in his person, or it appears to me that they're suing him in his person. Otherwise, they're doing a good job, and I think it's time. I think one of the things that has been problematic, if I'm to put it like that, is that Serap probably needs some better PR. They are actually doing the Lord's work in this environment. So let's try to do some free PR for them. Serap has, as far as I could find out, as far as I'm aware, 32 active cases on various issues. They have at least 17 resolved cases, with one of them which they lost. The one that they lost, which they're planning to appeal, is the Serap versus Code of Conduct Bureau judgment, where in a judgment that was delivered on in 2020, in May 2020, the judge ruled in favor of the Code of Conduct Bureau that the asset declaration is not subject to freedom of information. I think that ruling is rubbish, and I'm glad that Serap is appealing it. Some of the other judgments that Serap have obtained are very useful, such as one which directed the Attorney General to challenge state governors who moved to the Senate but continue collecting pensions from their states. They also have another judgment that where they asked the judge asked the federal government and the Ministry of Power to furnish the details of power sector players and details of what they have done. And then there's one they got from the ECOWAS courts, where the ECOWAS courts basically told the Nigerian government that education is a human right. I mean, just imagine in a country such as ours, the federal government was trying to pretend that education is not a right for all citizens. So SERAP does pretty useful work. And this is also a very useful one because we've had this flooding thing that's killed people this year, caused a lot of economic damage. We've not even started to see the effects. We'll start to see the effects next year because it's seriously affected harvest season. And there's supposed to be an ecological fund. It is clear that the ecological fund, so I'll give two examples that I know. You didn't hear so much in terms of flooding from Ekiti states, but we heard a lot from Kogi states. Ecological funds were released to both states some years ago. And while Ekiti State did what they were supposed to do with the ecological funds, Kogi State went to build things like roads without proper drainage and all of that stuff. Anyway, you know, I don't think much of the Kogi State governor. I think that's him and his menagerie are just completely illiterate, but that's another matter. The point is, Kogi State didn't do what they were meant to do with the ecological funds, and the results are there to see. So compelling the federal government to probe the use of those ecological funds is good. It is also good. SERAP can only do so much. They can make the lawsuits and then force a judgment, but at least let it be there on the record. Hopefully one day we'll get people in government who are sensible enough to try to enforce those judgments. But until then, God bless Sarah.
All right. We'll move things along. Although I would also talk in parts about this, how easy it has been over the years for the states to access these ecological funds. I know that at some point, Ekiti State went ahead and was doing work without access to the funds, saying that they couldn't wait for the federal government, which was a bit slower to respond on these things before the damage became too much. There was that.
Yeah. So again, in that respect, so at the very least, and I think that the one APC government that did very well was the APC government of Kayode Fayemi in Ekiti State. Of course, they have things that I quarrel with them about. For example, that thing that they called an airport that they built. But having said that, we have to talk about the good things that they did, and this ecological stuff, or the focus on trying to bring in mechanized dairy production into their state. Those are things that they did quite well. And we have to give kudos to them where kudos are deserved. This is one of it. Again, I will stress, we saw the effects of the work that they did in respect to the flooding when the floods finally hit earlier this year.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to read all the messages that have come in. Do remember, you can't keep sending them via WhatsApp to 0809 440 981. You can also send tweets in using the hashtag freshlypressed981, or you can leave a comment up on the live chat on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. All right, when we get in, time has gone.
Let's do that next same story.
Yeah,
it's very important. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just waiting.
Oh boy. Oh, by the way, Fabian came back with. Oh, what was that? Okay. Fabian came back with the dates. He says, Cheta, I actually left secondary school in 1993. Thank you. That's
okay.
Yes. All right, so let's see. As long as petroleum refinery, we should definitely not enjoy the benefits. Oh, we have a number of messages. Let me see if I can get through them on the other side. All right, we are back in 9, 6, 5. All right, and we are back with your messages. I'll start off with Nisi, who says, as long as petroleum refining is monopolized by a particular person, we definitely will not enjoy the benefits of local refining unless our relevant institutions are positively refined. See what you did there. This one in from Oscar from Isheri says, Nigerians seem to forget too fast. President Buhari during his campaign promised us more than one refinery, and we're not even talking about it. Whilst Dadok says if Serap is serious, they would be suing not for not building the Dasin Hausa Dam. This message in from Lizzie is quite a long one, saying that petroleum products are cheaper in Libya than Nigeria, despite the fact that Libya is a war-torn country. Diesel was deregulated years ago, but it has not benefited Nigerians. The IMF should investigate the fraud in Nigeria's subsidy of petrol and electricity. And Lizzie goes on. Peter from Festac says, before coming to power in 2015, this administration called subsidy a scam, and somehow I've been paying for the same scam for 7+ years. Please, who's deceiving who? And Shegun says, why doesn't Sarap sue state governors on the use or non-usage of ecological funds? Whilst Dami from Ikorodu says, there is a reason why the federal government has spent $25 billion. This one is really bolded for everybody to see, or for me to emphasize for you. There's a reason why the federal government has spent $25 billion on refinery maintenance in 25 years. Those refineries are not coming online anytime soon. It's a pot that many are feeding fat off of. All right, Chesa, let's take a look at this next article, which comes in from the Guardian newspaper. Finally, lawyers drag Buhari, Malami, and Okotete to court for violating CBN Act in appointments into Nexim Bank. This is lawyers for the Reform Group. So, Cheta, just go ahead, give us a bit of a background on this, because I know that there were allegations of massive corruption, round-tripping loans that were made to businesses. So much going into this.
I think that with respect to Sarah Kotete's thing, let's stick to the basis of the lawsuits. There are a lot of allegations of her stewardship at Nexim, but let's start again like we did with the petrol story from first principles. She wasn't even qualified for the job in the first place. And you have to ask all these lawyers, because what happened is that Buhari just reappointed her for another 5-year term. And that's when the furore has come up. So if you look at her CV in her own, written by herself, it's very clear she graduated from Benson Dahusa University in Benin in 2006, which was 16 years ago. But curiously, she has never worked in a bank. Her longest role has been as national coordinator of a foundation, Erotugene Foundation, which she started before entering university. She was a special assistant in the Delta State government between 2011 and 2015. Essentially, she has never worked in a bank, and having worked in a bank is a requirement.
Not just having worked in a bank, but the fact that you must have had 18 years.
You must have had 18 years and must have risen to a manager position. Is it the directorship position in the bank? The only qualification that she seems to have in this thing is that she's an APC. She's a Buhari loyalist, not even APC loyalist, but Buhari loyalist. And it begs the question: when she was first appointed to this in 2017, what were people why didn't anybody talk about it then? So all of what she has made as a result of 5 years of illegally being in this position, if she's compelled to leave the office, are we going to get it back from her? Because that's where it starts from. If you can't get it back from her, you simply send the message to another sharp person in future that they can do it and feed while they can before they are caught. That's the message. But if you force this woman to throw up all, to puke all she gazooed during the period, then you send.
Thank you.
Return is very benign.
Yes,
we know that she will not. We know not return it benignly. We know that for her to return all of these things, that her neck will have to be pressed, and pressed very hard. We know this, so let's not pretend about it.
Let's not pretend. Return is a return. Moving on, Cheta. Moving on.
As I was saying,
Mhm.
that is the fundamental. All the other allegations, in short, the allegations of insider trading, contract scams, and all that, it becomes very clear why all of that happened. When somebody that was patently unqualified was appointed in the first place, what did we expect?
From The Guardian, we don't have too much time, so let's see if we can take a couple more stories. From The Guardian, after 251 days, Abuja-Kaduna rail service resumes amid 6.6 billion naira losses. Cheta, over to you for this.
I think before we start, it's important to point out one thing. The 6.6 billion naira in 251 days is a calculation by The Guardian. I'm inclined to believe it because they have put together frequency of travel, the cost of tickets, and all of that good stuff, and then come up with the figure, basically averaging out over 251 days. On the other hand, Fide Okeria, who is the managing director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, claims that it is only 113 million naira that they've lost in that period. That lacuna, 6.6 billion as opposed to 113 million, is rather large, if I'm to say so myself. If we convert it to real money, it's $9 million of losses that the Guardian is calculating, while the government through the NRC is saying that they've lost only $154,000. The reason I converted it to real money is that the loans that we took out as a country, the loans that we're on hook for to build this railway, totaled $1.2 billion. That's what we need to pay back. We're losing money. We can't even agree on what the figures are. And like so many things, it's not just a mess. It's just a mess. And this is we still have we took these loans from Chinese sources, and a lot of these loans were accessed during the Jonathan government. The Chinese will one day come back to say, our bar, and we're not making any money. We're losing money, and we can't even. It shows a dearth of proper accounting, that we have this huge lacuna between figures calculated by the business department of a newspaper and the figures given by the National Railway Corporation. And it is very important to state that if the National Railway Corporation figures are true, then we have a lot to answer in terms of corruption, because it means that a lot of money is disappearing in the system. And that is the cocoa of the whole thing.
I would have said that considering the hastiness with which the National Railway Corporation had wanted to get the service back on track, that this was probably a huge factor in their reasoning behind that. However, considering the fact that it's now back on track, we have been assured that there are improved security, what's the word? Improved security measures. That's the word, thank you. And well, we hope that what happened on March 28th will not happen again, ever, on this rail line, on this route. Okay, so as we have come to 8 o'clock, let me see if I can take a few more. Let me take a couple of messages. I'll take this one in from Tiji, who says, please kindly find news that will gladden our hearts. And yes, he goes on to say, especially for Cheta, because the exasperation in the air is just too much. Don't let all of this affect your health, Cheta. It's Christmas time. Yeah, let's not talk about Christmas through Cheta's point of view at this point. Not with the petrol and the inflation and everything else.
I know they come out house this week, I beg. After that thing I suffered yesterday. Every meeting is on Zoom. I know fish chat.
Well, as long as your internet connection holds up, that's all that matters.
But you see, this is where the problem is. You still need that petrol to run, Jen.
Cheta, you're in it. You're in the fuel economy. Just take it as it is. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Do find him up on Twitter, up on Instagram. He is, all you need to just type at Chickster and you'll find him. On Instagram, there's an underscore and a B after that, but at CHXTA and you'll find him. All right, Cheta, thank you so much. Go and recuperate from what happened to you yesterday.